Finally, just for some people that often ask the question, what is this name Shazam? It's such an unusual name. It's actually a word. It's been used, many people know, for a movie and a comic series, but it's a word that means to conjure magic. And so when you think about it, you're holding your phone and figuring out the song that's playing, it really feels like magic. So a little bit about what the vision was for Shazam. So this picture was taken in London, in Hyde Park, and this is the first 3 co-founders of Shazam. And at this time, we were saying, gosh, wouldn't it be great to start a company? Let's start our own technology company. All we have to do is come up with an idea and then just make it happen. And so at this time, we would just meet in cafes and brainstorm different crazy ideas. And we just knew that the one thing we wanted to do was start our own company.
Hangisini istiyoruz gerçekten şirketimizi
The other 2
hangisiyle
folks
kurmak
you see
istiyoruz?
here are Philippe, who's from Belgium, and Dheeraj, who's from India and all over the world, really. And so one idea that had been plaguing me, one problem that I had in my life that I think many people have, was that I would hear music in my daily life, and I would always think, oh, what's that song? I really want that song on my personal list. And I would actually maintain a little list of my favorite music. When I would hear songs, I would ask people, what is this song? Can someone tell me? And I'd add it to my little list and sort of collect my own favorite songs. And so, of course, with Shazam, we thought, wow, what if you could just do that from your phone? Because in 2000, although phones were not necessarily advanced, everyone had them. And we thought, all you can do right now is make phone calls and send text messages with phones. Wouldn't it be great if you could also identify a song with your phone, just using the sound in the air? And that just seemed like a really exciting idea. And it was going to be much more than just simply a feature, much more than just identify songs.
Özellikten çok daha
It was
fazla.
going to be an entry point into everything that you want to do with music after you identify these songs. So we believed there was this thing called the music moment. And the music moment was a time when you felt this incredible inspiration around a piece of music that you heard. And at that time, when you found the name of the song, it's at that point you might think, oh, I'd love to share this song with a friend, or I'd love to add it to a personal playlist, or I'd love to find out more about the artist, or I'd like to see the album artwork. I'd like to read the lyrics of the song. So all the things that you might want to do with that song would be things that we could channel you into in the Shazam experience. So what we were really doing is that in the same way that the internet has links that you can click on, we were turning what you hear into a link. And now you can click on what you hear. But it turned out that to build this business, even though it was such an exciting idea, was a little more challenging than I think any of us anticipated. So the first challenge we encountered is that this technology that we wanted to build was impossible. There was no technology that could identify a song by listening to the sound in the air, especially because of the background noise, the ambient background noise that you get with that recording, and the incredible scale of database of music that we would have to search. So we actually went to the experts in this field known as audio signal processing. These were all PhDs in electrical engineering from the top institutions that focused in audio signal processing, including Stanford University and MIT Media Lab. And we approached professors, we approached PhD students, and they all said that there is no technology that can do this, and we have no idea how you would invent such a technology. But luckily we found one professor. And this professor is a professor at Stanford, and he was worldwide eminent in the field of audio signal processing. And he said, I'll help you, I'll be your advisor. And he said, I don't know how to invent this technology, but maybe I can help invent it in some way. And so the first project we gave him is we gave him a list of names, all PhDs from Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, who had focused their entire PhD thesis on audio signal processing. And we said, here's a list of 30 names, and none of us founders are technical, so we're not very good judges of who are the real geniuses here, and really they're all geniuses. But we asked this professor, can you please rank the 5 smartest on this list? And so that's what you see here as our original notes from that meeting in the professor's living room in Palo Alto, California, where he said the number 1 rank is a guy named Avery Wang. And all these guys were amazing guys, but we approached them and we said, would you like to be a co-founder of this new startup? You're going to invent the technology, and then we're going to build this into a big business. And so Avery Wang said he would be happy to do that, and he joined as the 4th co-founder. But then the next problem that we faced was that he also said it was impossible. And he did not know how to conquer this problem. And as you can see, when you look at the challenges that we faced, it was a really hard problem. We had to deal with the sound and the way that sound and music is altered, such as speakers that can alter the sound, poor quality speakers in some cases. We had to deal with noise, which is a tremendous problem in any form of pattern recognition. The ambient background murmur from people talking or cars driving. We had to deal with voice compression, technologies that were applied to the phone where they would chop the top and the bottom of the spectrum off and reduce the amount of information that was transmitted to be more efficient over the mobile networks. And that's reducing the quality of the sound that we had to work with. And noise cancellation technologies, which make the phone calls sound really good because they emphasize the human voice and they de-emphasize all other sounds, including music. So we had those challenges. We also had DJs who were changing the speed of the music when they were playing their vinyl records. And then we had DJs who would work with digital systems that would do pitch correction. So that basically means you speed the music up, but then you alter the pitch so that it doesn't sound like the voices are very altered. And then reverberation, like you get in a room like this, the kind of echoey sound also created challenges for us. And then on the bottom you can see the computational challenges we had in terms of being able to make this scale efficiently so that we wouldn't need hundreds of computers each time one person identified a song. It would be economically infeasible. And computational scaling, making it efficient, and false positives, which is something that you encounter any time that you have pattern recognition, basically identifying the wrong song. All these types of challenges. Oops. So what I'm going to do to give you an example of this is I'm going to play this quick 15-second sound. We might want to turn the sound up just a little bit so everyone can hear this well, please. If we could just turn the sound up. So I'm going to play 15 seconds of a song, so you can everyone can hear a piece of a song. And now I'll play that same 15 seconds from that same song as recorded in an ambient environment with people socializing in the background. Could anyone hear the song in the background there? So you can see the challenges of all that noise and trying to find the salient bits of music matching in the background of all that noise. And that's why we face such a very difficult technical problem to invent such a technology. And then after months of trying and months of almost giving up on inventing this technology, one day, when I checked my voicemail while on a sailing trip in Croatia, my co-founder Avery left a message saying, "We figured it out. We cracked the code and we came up with a solution, a breakthrough invention, that would be able to identify music with all this background noise and across such large scale of all the songs in the world. And this invention that he had come up with, along with a professor from Stanford, Julia Smith, was basically a three-dimensional graph known as a spectrogram. And the graph graphs energy peaks within sound against time and frequency and creates robust markers that we then scaled computationally using things like combinatorial hashing so that we could run a search, much like Google does on the internet, except we were searching music and identify a song every time someone dialed in with their phone. But the next challenge we faced is just the realization that we're so far ahead of our time. We were starting Shazam ahead of the iPod, ahead of iTunes. The world that we were living in didn't have an ecosystem of digital music. So after you identified songs, you couldn't actually download them. There was nothing you could do with it. People didn't think about using phones in these types of ways. And then we were 7 years ahead of the iPhone. So all the things that I mentioned, this vision that we had for this incredible experience of seeing lyrics and album cover art and so on, was all stuff that we couldn't do because we didn't have a graphical user interface. We didn't have 3G networks. We didn't have the ability to show lyrics. We didn't have the ability to show the album cover and the beautiful artwork. We couldn't do any of these things. There were no apps. There was no app store. We were working in a very backwards mobile world. And this is what we had to work with. This was the most popular phone that was on the market at the time that we launched in 2002. Some of you might remember this phone. There's one prior owner. The Nokia, I think this might be the 8830 or 8810. It had something like 78 by 84 pixels on its screen, monochrome, no color, no apps. And that's how everyone would use Shazam. A phone like this or any other basic phone that people had would be your way of using Shazam. And you're thinking, well, how would Shazam work on a phone like that, right? So the way it worked is you would dial a phone number, a 4-digit phone number, initiate a voice call into an interactive voice response system, simply hold your phone up in the air, and then we would just end the call after 15 seconds. We recorded the sound, identified the music, and then sent a text message to your phone with the name of the song. And that was Shazam. Thanks. Thank you very much. And the first market that we launched in was the UK, United Kingdom, and everyone in the United Kingdom upon launch could use our service because all you needed was a mobile phone. Any mobile phone could make a phone call, and any mobile phone could receive a text message. But the next challenge we faced is, of course, we have to make this into a robust commercial service. And at that time, there was no Amazon cloud. So that meant that we had to build from the ground up our own search engine, our own what's called Beowulf cluster of PCs that do parallel processing. Essentially our own, similar to what Google built, our own search engine of parallel PCs, in which across these PCs, in the RAM of these PCs, in the memory, we stored the fingerprints of every single song in our database. And we had to have that built and ready to take the flood of calls from users on the day of launch. And of course, what good would Shazam be if you didn't have the music as well? And that includes lots of music, including obviously Turkish music, French music, Korean music, Japanese music, and we had no music. And there were no databases of digital music that were available to us. So again, being a scrappy startup, we had to build that music database from the ground up. And so what we did is we hired a team of 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds to take CDs and put them into computers, and then we would take the fingerprints of every single song from every single CD, and then they would type the name of every single song and type the name of every single artist and every single album cover for every single CD available in the UK market for our launch. And to give you a sense of how much music that was, at that time, the largest record store in the UK was on Oxford Street. Some of you have probably walked down Oxford Street before if you visited London. And in that store were 15,000 CDs. So if you had one of every CD, one of every album available in that store, you would have 15,000 CDs, or about 200 to 250,000 songs. But we launched with 100,000 CDs. 1.7 million songs. So we felt like we had a tremendous amount of music at launch. And to give you a perspective, today Shazam would have well over 50 million songs. So incredible amount of music now covering countries all over the world. And so we launched. Here's my co-founders celebrating at our launch, Dheeraj and Philippe. And we were so excited because everything that we said we would do, we had done. We said we would invent this, we came up with this great idea. We said we'd invent this impossible technology, that we would file unique patents on it, raise millions of dollars in venture capital funding, 7.5 million is what our first round. Build this service to launch, encode a giant database of fingerprints of music, and take this thing to launch. And we had achieved everything. And so now, of course, we were going to have millions of users that just celebrate this incredible success. Not so fast, because actually it didn't turn out that easy. Because actually we didn't get millions of users. When we launched in 2002, in that world before apps, it turned out it was very, very hard to get the word out, to get new users, and to grow at this astronomical rate. And so actually the company from 2002 until when the iPhone App Store launched in 2008, for that 6-year period, we struggled. And we almost went bankrupt several times during that period. We had 2 rounds of layoffs, and we barely survived on very little revenue and very little funding. But then 2008 happened. The year after the iPhone launched is the year that Apple launched the App Store. And in that App Store were just a small number of apps, one of which was Shazam. And it was then that suddenly Shazam realized its dream, because finally it existed in a way that it had always meant to be, with a beautiful app experience, something that you can download from an app store, a wonderful graphical experience. And we're instantly one of the most successful apps from the day of the App Store launch until fast forward to today. And so today, Shazam has had well over 1 billion downloads around the world, hundreds of millions of monthly active users. Thank you. And I think something like 8 million new people try Shazam every single month. And famous artists from around the world even engage with Shazam and create accounts so they can have followers. So I thought I'd tell you a few lessons that I learned. This is my son, Jude, who's 10 years old. And when I ask him, what do you want to be when you grow up? He says, I want to be an entrepreneur. And so I like to tell him, well, what are my lessons for him? And what are my lessons for all the aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience? So the first one is to focus on simplicity. Every aspect of your business should be simple. From finding the customers, explaining the product, the usability of your product or service, the way that you interact with your partners, everything should be easy and simple for the people around you. I'm a big believer in the value of simplicity, and in particular what I'm excited about when it comes to simplicity as a technology entrepreneur is when powerful, innovative technology enables beautiful simplicity. And so that the examples in my career, because since Shazam, I've also worked at Google and at Dropbox for many years. And if you look at those three companies, Google, Dropbox, and Shazam, they all share that commonality. Behind that little search box on Google is such incredibly powerful, innovative technology that creates something as simple as type something and get an answer. With Dropbox, behind that little folder that just sits on your computer is very, very complex synchronization technology to make sure all your files are perfectly synchronized between your computer and the cloud. And then behind that button on Shazam, where you just push it and get an answer, is very, very complex technology around pattern recognition and artificial intelligence. I love the idea for all technology entrepreneurs of just employing and innovating very complex technologies to serve the interest of the user by creating this beautiful, simple experience. Another lesson for our entrepreneurs that I found is the importance of revenue. Revenue is like oxygen. It allows you to breathe. It allows you to continue living as a company. And it's so important to find that early revenue to fund the business through those difficult times. With Shazam, the early revenue for the company is not what people think of. It actually came from identifying music across hundreds of and even thousands of radio stations and selling that data to companies that needed to know what was playing on the radio. And that became an early revenue stream that funded the company through challenging years. Similarly, for Google, the early revenue came from powering Yahoo's search in those early years while they built up the Google search engine. So I think for entrepreneurs to think through what is that early revenue that can fund the company through those difficult years of innovation is really critical. Obsessed with how you're going to acquire users. As I mentioned with Shazam, we found that upon launch it was actually incredibly difficult to get users. And I find with so many startups, the entrepreneurs can lose sight of just how challenging it will be to get the word out, to get the customers. And so I always encourage innovation, not only on the product, not only on the service, but also on how you're going to be unique and different and think out of the box and how you're going to find those customers. And if you look at the stories of many successful companies such as Spotify and Skype and YouTube and so on, they often did very unique things that basically allowed them to seed that initial set of early customers in a very efficient way. Pursue your dreams. With Shazam, I really wanted not only to start a company, but also to live in Europe, to live in London. And I dreamed of having the very first office of this startup in my favorite part of London, and it's Soho, vibrant Soho, which is where our first office opened up. And so I loved the experience of not only starting a company, but pursuing this life dream as part of it, the life experience. And I think that's such an important thing for entrepreneurs to keep that passion alive and to keep them excited. And of course, enjoy every moment, savor those moments, because that whole experience of being an entrepreneur and doing the startup is such an amazing experience. And who knows if the company will succeed or fail. In fact, the odds are stacked against you. There's a good chance it might fail the first time you try and the second time you try before you're a great success on your third company. But you do want to make sure that the entire experience is an amazing experience along the way. So this picture, for example, my co-founders and I used to travel together and go on amazing trips. This one was to the Taj Mahal in India, and we went to other places like Ibiza, of course, where music is a big part of the cultural experience. And my co-founders have always remained very close friends through these experiences. And then as you can see from the story of Shazam, all those years of persevering to get to this success outcome that came from putting extra effort in every day along the way. And I love this mathematical truth that illustrates the actual impact of putting in that 1% more every single day, 365 days a year. Just look at the impact of 1% more as compared to 1% less in just a 365-day period. Tremendous. And it really illustrates the importance of that continued perseverance for any entrepreneur. And one last lesson is this quote: "The greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you cannot do." And there were so many people that told us that we could not do Shazam, that we could not invent the technology. Investors that said that it would not take off, that no one would use it. Venture capitalists that said it would not be a viable business, or that it was just a feature, a novelty, and people would use it once and then never again. And we proved them all wrong and got to exactly what the vision that we had always dreamed of. Thank you so much. So I love to show this little television advertisement. It's actually an Apple television advertisement from 1997, and it seems so appropriate that it's Apple, obviously, with Apple buying Shazam. But I love this ad because really I find it incredibly inspiring. It's not focused on entrepreneurs, although there's some entrepreneurs in it, but it's really focused on the people that are trying to change things in some way and all the challenges that they can face, the lack of belief from others. So please watch this quick 30-second ad commercial.
Here's the craziness, the mystics, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough